Philippine Criminology Licensure Examination. Subject: Criminalistics. Question number 1. Forensic photography. In forensic photography, which type of photograph is taken to show the relationship of the crime scene to its surrounding environment? A. Close-up photograph. B. Medium-range photograph. C. Overview, long-range photograph. D. Identification photograph. Correct answer: C. Overview, long-range photograph. Why C is correct? Overview or long-range photographs are taken first during crime scene documentation to establish the geographic context and relationship of the scene to its surroundings. This provides the court with a visual understanding of the entire location. Why the others are wrong? A close-up photograph. These are used to capture fine details, trace evidence, or injuries up close. They do not show environmental context. B. Medium-range photograph. These show the specific area of the scene and the relationship between pieces of evidence, not the surrounding environment. D. Identification photograph. These are taken for identifying individuals, e.g., mugshots, not for crime scene environmental context. Edge knowledge. Remember the sequence: overview to medium to close-up. The question asks about surroundings, environment equals overview, long range. Question number 2. Question documents. In question document examination, the process of identifying the author of a handwritten document by comparing letter formations, pen pressure, and slant is called a typewriting examination. B. Handwriting identification. C. Ink analysis. D. Paper chromatography. Correct answer: B. Handwriting identification. Why B is correct? Handwriting identification, also known as forensic graphology in the Philippine context, is the examination of handwritten characteristics such as letter formation, pen pressure, slant, spacing, and other individual traits to determine authorship of a document. Why the others are wrong? A typewriting examination. This involves analyzing characters produced by typewriters or printers, not handwritten documents. C. Ink analysis. This is a chemical process to determine the composition, age, or type of ink used, not to identify authorship. D. Paper chromatography. This is a chemical technique to separate ink components. It does not identify the author of a document. Edge knowledge. The keyword is author plus handwritten plus letter formations, pen pressure, slant, all point to handwriting identification. Question number 3. Fingerprint science. Which fingerprint pattern is characterized by ridges that enter from one side, curve upward, and exit from the same side, with a minimum of 1 delta? A. Whorl. B. Arch. C. Loop. D. Composite. Correct answer: C. Loop. Why C is correct? A loop pattern has ridges that enter from one side, either left or right, curve upward forming a U-shape, and exit from the same side they entered. It has 1 delta and 1 core. Loops are the most common fingerprint pattern, comprising about 60 to 65% of all fingerprints. Why the others are wrong? A. Whorl. A whorl has ridges that form a circular or spiral pattern with at least 2 deltas. Ridges do not enter and exit from the same side. B. Arch. An arch has ridges that enter from one side, rise in the center, and exit from the other side. It has no delta. D. Composite. A composite is a combination of 2 or more different pattern types. It is not a basic fingerprint classification in the Philippine system. Edge knowledge. Loop equals 1 delta. Ridges enter and exit from the same side. Same side is the key differentiator from arches. Question number 4. Ballistics. The examination of the interior of a gun barrel to determine if a specific bullet was fired from it is known as A. External ballistics. B. Terminal ballistics. C. Internal ballistics. D. Firearms identification. Correct answer: D. Firearms identification. Why D is correct? Firearms identification, also called ballistic fingerprinting, is the forensic discipline concerned with matching fired bullets and cartridge cases to a specific firearm through the examination of class and individual characteristics such as rifling marks, striations, and breech face impressions. Why the others are wrong. A. External ballistics. This deals with the behavior of a projectile after it leaves the muzzle of the firearm and while it is in flight. B. Terminal ballistics. This is the study of the behavior of a projectile when it strikes and transfers its energy to a target. C. Internal ballistics. This covers the events that occur inside the firearm from the ignition of the cartridge to the bullet's exit from the muzzle. Edge knowledge. The phrase specific bullet was fired from it, matching bullet to gun, equals firearms identification. The other ballistics terms describe projectile motion stages. Question number 5. Forensic chemistry. Pause. A PNP crime laboratory chemist performs the Marquis test on a white crystalline substance seized in Quezon City. The substance turns purple-black. The presumptive result indicates the presence of A. Cocaine, B. Methamphetamine, shabu, C. Morphine, heroin, D. Cannabis. Correct answer. C. Morphine, heroin. Why C is correct. The Marquis reagent, a mixture of concentrated sulfuric acid and formaldehyde, produces a purple to black color reaction when it comes into contact with opiates such as morphine and heroin. This is a standard presumptive color test used in Philippine crime laboratories. Why the others are wrong. A. Cocaine. Cocaine reacts with Marquis reagent to produce an orange to brown color, not purple-black. B. Methamphetamine, shabu. Shabu reacts with Marquis reagent to produce an orange to reddish-brown color. It does not turn purple-black. D. Cannabis. Cannabis, marijuana, does not produce a significant color change with the Marquis reagent. The Duquesnoy-Levine test is used for cannabis identification. Edge knowledge. Marquis plus purple, black equals opiates, morphine, heroin. Memorize. Purple equals poppy, opiates. Shabu equals orange-brown with Marquis. Question number 6. Polygraphy. In polygraphy, which physiological parameter is recorded by the pneumograph component of the polygraph instrument? A. Blood pressure and pulse rate. B. Galvanic skin response. C. Respiratory movement. D. Muscular activity. Correct answer. C. Respiratory movement. Why C is correct. The pneumograph is the component of the polygraph that records respiratory, breathing, movements. It consists of rubber tubes placed around the chest and abdomen that expand and contract with breathing, recording the changes in thoracic and abdominal respiration. Why the others are wrong. A. Blood pressure and pulse rate. These are recorded by the cardiograph, cardiovascular, component of the polygraph, using an arm cuff similar to a sphygmomanometer. B. Galvanic skin response. This is measured by the galvanograph or electrodermal activity sensor, which records changes in skin conductivity due to sweating. D. Muscular activity. Muscular movement is monitored by the movement sensor or activity sensor, a separate component added to detect countermeasures. Edge knowledge. Pneumo equals breathing, respiration. Match the prefix pneumograph to pneumonia, lungs, breathing. This is a vocabulary-based question. Question number 7. Question documents. A document examiner in Manila observed that a signature on a deed of sale appears to have been produced by slowly and carefully tracing over an original signature. This method of forgery is called A. Freehand simulation. B. Tracing forgery. C. Spurious signature. D. Disguised writing. Correct answer. B. Tracing forgery. Why B is correct. Tracing forgery occurs when a forger places a genuine signature under the document and traces over it, or uses carbon paper to copy the original signature. It produces unnatural pen lifts, tremors, patching, and slow speed characteristics visible under magnification. Why the others are wrong. A. Freehand simulation. This is when the forger studies a genuine signature and attempts to reproduce it from memory without tracing. It often produces better pen fluency but lacks precision. C. Spurious signature. This is a signature completely made up by the forger without attempting to copy any specific person's genuine signature. D. Disguised writing. This is when a person deliberately alters their own handwriting to conceal their identity as the author, not to copy another person's signature. Edge knowledge. The clue is slowly and carefully tracing over. That literally describes tracing forgery. Freehand simulation is done from memory, not by tracing. Question number 8. Criminalistics, General. The Locard exchange principle, which serves as the foundation of forensic science, states that A. Every criminal leaves behind evidence that can be detected by modern technology. B. Every contact between two objects results in an exchange of material. C. Physical evidence is more reliable than testimonial evidence. D. A criminal always returns to the scene of the crime. Correct answer. B. Every contact between two objects results in an exchange of material. Why B is correct? Dr. Edmund Locard's exchange principle states, every contact leaves a trace. When two objects come into contact, there is always a mutual transfer of material. A criminal both brings something to the scene and takes something away. This principle justifies the collection and examination of trace evidence in all criminal investigations. Why the others are wrong. A. Every criminal leaves behind evidence detectable by technology. While related, this is an oversimplification. Locard's principle is about the physical exchange of material, not about detectability through technology. C. Physical evidence is more reliable than testimonial evidence. This is a general principle of evidence law, not Locard's exchange principle. D. A criminal always returns to the scene of the crime. This is a criminological theory about offender behavior, unrelated to Locard's forensic science principle. Edge knowledge. Locard equals exchange equals transfer of material. The word contact and exchange together identify choice B immediately. Question number 9. Fingerprint science. In the Philippine National Police fingerprint classification system, the letter L in the fingerprint formula denotes A. Left loop, B. Plain arch, C. Radial loop, D. Accidental whorl. Correct answer. C. Radial loop. Why C is correct? In the Henry classification system adopted by the PNP, the letter L, or R in some notations, represents a radial loop, a loop whose ridges flow toward the radius bone, thumb side, of the hand. This is distinguished from the ulnar loop, which flows toward the ulna bone, little finger side. Why the others are wrong. A left loop is not a standard classification symbol. The direction, radial versus ulnar, is determined by the bone the loop opens toward, not by left or right hand. B. Plain arch. A plain arch is typically represented by the letter A in fingerprint classification formulas. D. Accidental whorl. Accidental whorls are represented by X or AX in classification systems. They are not denoted by L. Edge knowledge. Memorize. R equals radial loop, opens toward radius, thumb side. U equals ulnar loop, opens toward ulna, little finger side. L stands for the radial loop in many PNP notation references. Question number 10. Forensic photography. During the documentation of a stabbing victim found in Tondo, Manila, the crime scene photographer takes a photograph showing the body and the surrounding evidence items such as the weapon and bloodstains without extreme close-up detail. This is classified as a overall photograph, B. Close-up photograph, C. Medium-range photograph, D. Identification photograph. Correct answer. C. Medium-range photograph. Why C is correct? Medium-range, mid-range photographs show a specific area of the crime scene including the victim and associated evidence items in relation to each other, without the extreme detail of a close-up. They establish the spatial relationship between pieces of evidence and are taken after overall photographs. Why the others are wrong? A overall photograph, overall, long-range photographs show the entire crime scene and its relationship to the surrounding area. They are taken from a distance and do not focus on specific evidence items. B. Close-up photograph. Close-up photographs capture fine detail of individual pieces of evidence, e.g., the wound, a fingerprint, or a shell casing, and are taken at close range. De-identification photograph. Identification photographs are used to document the identity of a person, e.g., victim's face, suspect's mugshot, not to document crime scene evidence relationships. Edge knowledge. Body plus surrounding evidence items plus no extreme detail equals medium range. Think. Overview to body plus evidence nearby, medium, to detail only, close up. Question number 11. Ballistics. The distance between two corresponding grooves measured across the bore of a firearm is known as a bore diameter. B. Caliber. C. Twist rate. D. Land diameter. Correct answer. B. Caliber. Why B is correct? Caliber refers to the internal diameter of a firearm barrel, measured from land to land, raised portions between grooves. In the Philippines and internationally, caliber is expressed in hundredths of an inch, e.g., 0.45 caliber, or in millimeters, e.g., 9 millimeters. It is the primary measurement used to classify firearms. Why the others are wrong? A bore diameter. The bore diameter is the measurement across the interior of the barrel from groove to groove, the widest measurement. It is technically different from the caliber, which is measured from land to land. C. Twist rate. The twist rate refers to the rate at which the rifling grooves spiral inside the barrel, e.g., 1 turn in 12 inches. It affects bullet spin and accuracy, not the bore measurement. D. Land diameter. The land diameter is the measurement from one land to the opposite land, which is the same as the caliber. However, land diameter is a less standard term compared to caliber in Philippine criminology licensure context. Edge knowledge. Caliber equals diameter of the bore equals how we classify what size bullet. The word diameter measured across the bore equals caliber. Question number 12. Forensic toxicology. SPO2 De La Cruz collected blood samples from a suspected drunk driver in EDSA, Mandaluyong City. Which blood alcohol concentration, BAC, level, under Philippine law, is the legal threshold for driving under the influence, DUI? A. 0.03% BAC. B. 0.05% BAC. C. 0.08% BAC. D. 0.10% BAC. Correct answer. B. 0.05% BAC. Why B is correct? Under Republic Act No. 10586, Anti-Drunk and Drug Driving Act of 2013, the legal BAC limit for non-professional drivers in the Philippines is 0.05%, 50 mg per 100 milliliters of blood. For professional drivers, PUV, truck, motorcycle, the limit is stricter at 0.01% BAC. Why the others are wrong? A. 0.03% BAC. This is the BAC limit applicable to professional drivers of public utility vehicles and motorcycles under RA 10586, not the general non-professional driver threshold. C. 0.08% BAC. This is the DUI threshold used in the United States and other countries, but not the standard set by Philippine law, RA 10586. D. 0.10% BAC. This level is higher than the Philippine DUI threshold. At this BAC, a person is legally impaired in the Philippines and many other jurisdictions. Edge knowledge. Philippine DUI law, RA 10586, equals 0.05% for regular drivers. Remember, Philippines uses 0.05%, USA uses 0.08%. Always anchor to Philippine law. Question number 13. Fingerprint science. Which of the following fingerprint development techniques is most appropriate for developing latent prints on non-porous surfaces such as glass and plastic? A. Ninhydrin technique. B. Iodine fuming. C. Fingerprint powder dusting. D. DFO, 1,8-diazofluorine 9,1. Correct answer. C. Fingerprint powder dusting. Why C is correct? Fingerprint powder dusting is the most commonly used and effective method for developing latent fingerprints on non-porous surfaces such as glass, plastic, metal, and painted surfaces. The powder adheres to the fatty residues left by fingerprint ridges. Aluminum powder, for dark surfaces, and carbon, graphite powder, for light surfaces, are standard choices. Why the others are wrong? A ninhydrin technique. Ninhydrin reacts with amino acids in sweat and is used primarily on porous surfaces such as paper and cardboard, not on glass or plastic. B. Iodine fuming. Iodine fuming is effective on porous surfaces like paper and skin. It produces temporary results and is not ideal for non-porous surfaces. DDFO 1,8-diazofluorine 9,1 DFO is a fluorescent chemical technique best used on porous surfaces such as paper. It reacts with amino acids and requires alternate light source examination. Edge knowledge. Non-porous, glass, plastic, metal, equals powder dusting. Porous, paper, cardboard, equals chemical methods, ninhydrin, DFO, iodine. This is a classic PRC exam pairing. Question number 14. Question documents. A document examiner is asked to determine the age of ink on a contested last will and testament. The most reliable scientific method for determining ink age is A. Ultraviolet light examination. B. Infrared luminescence. C. Gas chromatography mass spectrometry, GCMS. D. Thin layer chromatography, TLC. Correct answer. C. Gas chromatography mass spectrometry, GCMS. Why C is correct? GCMS is considered the most reliable and scientifically accepted method for determining the age of ink by analyzing the ratio of solvent components and chemical compounds that change over time as the ink dries and ages. It can detect specific dye components and degradation products that establish when the ink was applied. Why the others are wrong? A. Ultraviolet light examination, UV examination can reveal alterations, erasures, and some ink differences but cannot reliably determine the absolute age of ink. B. Infrared luminescence. Infrared examination differentiates inks that appear identical under visible light based on their different IR absorption properties but does not determine ink age. D. Thin layer chromatography, TLC. TLC can separate and compare ink components to determine if inks are from the same source but is less precise than GCMS for determining ink age. Edge knowledge. Ink age determination equals GCMS, chemical degradation analysis. TLC equals ink comparison, source. UV, IR equals alterations, differences. Age equals chemical analysis equals GCMS. Question number 15. Forensic biology, serology. A bloodstain recovered from the crime scene in Cebu City produces a positive result with the Kastle-Meyer phenolphthalein test. This result indicates A. The stain is confirmed to be human blood. B. The stain is presumptively positive for blood. C. The stain is confirmed to contain hemoglobin. D. The stain is conclusively identified as blood from the suspect. Correct answer. B. The stain is presumptively positive for blood. Why B is correct? The Kastle-Meyer phenolphthalein test is a presumptive test for blood. A pink color change indicates a presumptive positive, meaning the substance may be blood, but the result can also be triggered by other substances with peroxidase-like activity, e.g., plant materials, certain metals. Confirmatory tests such as the luminol test and species-specific serological tests must follow. Why the others are wrong? A. The stain is confirmed to be human blood. The Kastle-Meyer test cannot confirm the stain as human blood. It is not species-specific and can cross-react with other substances. C. The stain is confirmed to contain hemoglobin. While the test detects peroxidase-like activity associated with hemoglobin, confirmation requires additional testing. The result is presumptive, not confirmatory. D. The stain is conclusively identified as blood from the suspect, Individual identification from a bloodstain requires DNA analysis. The Kastle-Meyer test provides no information about the source individual. Edge knowledge. Kastle-Meyer equals presumptive only. Any color test is presumptive. For confirmation, look for terms like species-specific or DNA analysis. Presumptive does not equal confirmed. Question number 16. Criminalistics, general. The chain of custody in evidence handling requires that evidence must be stored in a temperature-controlled environment at all times. B. Every person who handles the evidence must be documented from collection to court presentation. C. Evidence must be analyzed within 24 hours of collection. D. Only the lead investigator is allowed to handle physical evidence. Correct answer. B. Every person who handles the evidence must be documented from collection to court presentation. Why B is correct. Chain of custody is the documented chronological record of every person who had custody of the evidence from the time it was collected at the crime scene to its presentation in court. It ensures the integrity, authenticity, and admissibility of physical evidence by demonstrating that it has not been tampered with, altered, or contaminated. Why the others are wrong. Evidence must be stored in a temperature-controlled environment at all times. While proper storage conditions are important for certain types of evidence, e.g., biological, this is not the definition or requirement of chain of custody. C. Evidence must be analyzed within 24 hours of collection. There is no universal legal mandate requiring analysis within 24 hours. Chain of custody is about documentation of handlers, not time limits. D. Only the lead investigator is allowed to handle physical evidence. Multiple authorized persons may handle evidence. Chain of custody requires documentation of all handlers, not restriction to one person. Edge knowledge. Chain of custody equals documentation of every handler. The keyword is documented from collection to court. If it mentions every person who handles, that's the answer. Question number 17. Forensic pathology. During autopsy of a homicide victim in Davao City, the medico-legal officer observes a star-shaped or stellate wound with soot and stippling around the entrance wound. This wound is consistent with a distant gunshot wound, b. intermediate range gunshot wound, c. contact gunshot wound, d. graze gunshot wound. Correct answer. C. Contact gunshot wound. Why C is correct. A contact gunshot wound occurs when the muzzle of the firearm is pressed against or in contact with the skin when fired. The hot gases, soot, and burning powder are forced into the wound and surrounding tissue, causing a characteristic stellate, star-shaped, laceration of the skin and heavy soot deposition. The skin stretches over the muzzle gases and tears outward. Why the others are wrong. A distant gunshot wound. A distant gunshot wound, typically beyond 60 inches, 150 centimeters, shows only a circular entrance wound with an abraded collar. No soot, stippling, or stellate tearing is present. B. Intermediate range gunshot wound. An intermediate range wound shows stippling, powder tattooing, but minimal soot. The wound edges are not typically stellate unless at near contact range. Soot is less prominent than in contact wounds. D. Graze gunshot wound. A graze wound is produced when the bullet travels tangentially across the skin surface, producing an oval or elongated abrasion, not a stellate wound with soot. Edge knowledge. Stellate plus soot heavily deposited equals contact wound. Muzzle was touching. Stippling only equals intermediate, neither equals distant. Star-shaped plus soot equals contact. Question number 18. Forensic chemistry. The Simon's test is used as a confirmatory test to differentiate which two controlled substances. A. Heroin and morphine. B. Methamphetamine, shabu, and ephedrine. C. Cocaine and lidocaine. D. Cannabis and synthetic cannabinoids. Correct answer. B. Methamphetamine, shabu, and ephedrine. Why B is correct. Simon's test, using sodium nitroprusside and acetaldehyde in alkaline conditions, is a confirmatory test that differentiates secondary amines from primary amines. Methamphetamine, a secondary amine, produces a blue color, while ephedrine, a primary amine, does not. This is critical in Philippine drug cases where both substances look similar. Why the others are wrong? A heroin and morphine. These opiates are differentiated using the acetylcholine test or by GCMS. Simon's test is not used for opiate differentiation. C. Cocaine and lidocaine. These are differentiated using the Scott test, cobalt thiocyanate, and chromatographic methods, not Simon's test. D. Cannabis and synthetic cannabinoids. Cannabis is identified using the Duquesnoy-Levine test. Synthetic cannabinoids require immunoassay or GCMS screening. Edge knowledge. Simon's test equals shabu, meth, versus ephedrine. Blue color equals methamphetamine, secondary amine. This is a high-frequency PRC exam topic. Memorize this pairing. Question number 19. Question documents. The ESDA, electrostatic detection apparatus, is used in question document examination primarily to detect A. Alterations and erasures on documents. B. Indented writing impressions on paper. C. Age of ink on question documents. D. Counterfeit currency security features. Correct answer. B. Indented writing impressions on paper. Why B is correct. The ESDA, electrostatic detection apparatus, is a non-destructive forensic tool specifically designed to reveal invisible indented impressions on paper caused by writing on pages placed above the examined sheet. It uses static electricity to visualize these impressions, which can be photographed for evidence. It is widely used to detect writing impressions that link sheets of paper from the same writing pad. Why the others are wrong. Alterations and erasures on documents. Alterations and erasures are typically detected using oblique light examination, UV, IR imaging, and microscopic examination, not ESDA. See age of ink on question documents. Ink aging is analyzed using chemical methods such as GCMS and TLC. ESDA does not have any chemical analytical capability. D. Counterfeit currency security features. Currency examination uses UV light, magnification, and specialized equipment to check security threads, watermarks, and microprinting, not ESDA. Edge knowledge. ESDA equals indented writing detection only. Remember the acronym. Electrostatic equals static electricity reveals indentations. If you see indented impressions, the answer is ESDA. Question number 20. Ballistics. A fired cartridge case recovered at the crime scene in Makati City shows a circular indentation at the center of the primer. This mark was made by the A. firing pin, B. extractor, C. ejector, D. breech face. Correct answer. A. firing pin. Why A is correct. The firing pin strikes the primer of a cartridge at the center to initiate ignition. The firing pin impression, FPI, left on the primer is a unique individual characteristic of each firearm and is used in forensic ballistics to match a fired cartridge case to a specific weapon. The shape and depth of the impression are class and individual characteristics of the firearm. Why the others are wrong. B. extractor. The extractor grips the rim of the cartridge case to pull it backward out of the chamber after firing. It leaves a striated or drag mark on the rim, not a central circular indentation on the primer. C. ejector. The ejector forcefully ejects the extracted cartridge case from the firearm. It leaves an ejector mark on the head or rim area of the case, not on the primer. D. breech face. The breech face is the forward face of the bolt or slide that supports the cartridge head during firing. It leaves breech face impressions on the head of the case, not a central indentation on the primer. Edge knowledge. Circular indentation at the center of the primer equals firing pin impression, FPI. The firing pin hits the primer to ignite the cartridge. Center plus primer equals firing pin. Question number 21. Forensic photography. In crime scene photography, the technique of photographing a scale ruler placed next to physical evidence is done to A. certify that the evidence was found at the scene. B. show the actual size and dimensions of the evidence. C. Provide color reference for laboratory analysis. D. Indicate the time and date of the photograph. Correct answer. B. Show the actual size and dimensions of the evidence. Why B is correct. Placing a scale ruler, or measurement scale, next to physical evidence before photographing it, with scale photographs, allows the viewer to determine the actual size and dimensions of the evidence. This is essential for court presentation as it provides an accurate spatial reference. Both with scale and without scale photographs are required for complete documentation. Why the others are wrong. A. Certify that the evidence was found at the scene. Certification of evidence location is established through written documentation, sketches, and chain of custody records, not a scale ruler in photographs. C. Provide color reference for laboratory analysis. A color reference card or gray card is used for color calibration. A scale ruler provides measurements, not color reference. D. Indicate the time and date of the photograph. Time and date are recorded through camera metadata and photo logs. A scale ruler serves no time, date indication function. Edge knowledge. Scale ruler equals size reference. The question asks why a ruler is used equals to show actual size and dimensions. Eliminate all options not related to measurement. Question number 22. Forensic biology, serology. DNA extracted from a blood sample is subjected to polymerase chain reaction, PCR. The primary purpose of PCR in forensic DNA analysis is to A. Determine the blood type of the sample. B. Compare the DNA sequence to a database. C. Amplify small quantities of DNA to detectable levels. D. Identify the species origin of the blood sample. Correct answer. C. Amplify small quantities of DNA to detectable levels. Why C is correct. PCR, polymerase chain reaction, is a molecular biology technique that creates millions of copies of a specific DNA sequence from a very small, degraded, or minute sample. In forensic science, PCR allows analysts to work with trace amounts of biological material, e.g., touch DNA, old stains, that would otherwise be insufficient for analysis. Why the others are wrong. A. Determine the blood type of the sample. Blood typing, ABO and RH, is performed through serological tests using antibodies, not PCR. PCR amplifies DNA but does not determine blood type. B. Compare the DNA sequence to a database. Database comparison, like CODIS in the US or NDDB in the Philippines, is performed after PCR amplification and STR profiling. It is a separate step. D. Identify the species origin of the blood sample. Species identification uses species-specific serological tests, e.g., precipitine test, or species-specific PCR primers. Standard forensic PCR does not identify species. Edge knowledge. PCR equals amplification, making many copies from a tiny sample. Any question about too small a sample, or amplify equals PCR is the answer. Question number 23. Criminalistics, general. Physical evidence that originates from the criminal and is transferred to the victim or scene is classified as A. Trace evidence. B. Transfer evidence. C. Class evidence. D. Individual evidence. Correct answer. B. Transfer evidence. Why B is correct. Transfer evidence, also called transference evidence, is physical evidence that has been moved from one location to another as a result of contact, consistent with Locard's exchange principle. It includes fibers, hair, blood, soil, or any material transferred from the perpetrator to the victim or scene, or vice versa. Why the others are wrong. A. Trace evidence. Trace evidence refers to small, often microscopic amounts of physical evidence such as hair, fiber, glass fragments, or soil. While trace evidence is often transfer evidence specifically describes the source-to-destination relationship. C. Class evidence. Class evidence is physical evidence that can only be associated with a group of items sharing the same characteristics, e.g., fiber type, paint brand, rather than with a single specific source. D. Individual evidence. Individual evidence is physical evidence that can be associated with a single specific source to the exclusion of all others, e.g., fingerprints, DNA, tool marks. Edge knowledge. Transfer equals moved from criminal to scene, victim, Locard's principle in action. The key phrase is, originates from the criminal and is transferred, equals transfer evidence. Question number 24. Polygraphy. In polygraph examination, the control question test, CQT, technique uses control questions that are designed to be a. Relevant to the specific incident under investigation. B. Unrelated to the incident but emotionally arousing. C. Simple biographical questions with known truthful answers. D. Questions about the examinee's criminal history. Correct answer. B. Unrelated to the incident but emotionally arousing. Why B is correct? In the control question test, CQT, control questions are designed to be unrelated to the specific crime under investigation but are emotionally meaningful and somewhat anxiety-provoking. E.g., have you ever stolen something? Or, have you ever lied to get out of trouble? An innocent person is expected to react more strongly to these control questions than to the relevant questions about the crime. Why the others are wrong. Irrelevant to the specific incident under investigation. Questions relevant to the crime are called relevant questions, not control questions. These directly address the facts of the case. C. Simple biographical questions with known truthful answers. These are called irrelevant questions, e.g., is your name Juan de la Cruz? They serve as baseline measurements. D. Questions about the examinee's criminal history. While control questions may touch on past bad acts, they are not specifically about criminal history. They are designed to produce emotional arousal in innocent subjects. Edge knowledge. Control questions equals not about the crime, but emotionally arousing. Relevant equals crime-related. Irrelevant equals biographical baseline. Control equals emotionally loaded but unrelated. Question number 25. Forensic chemistry. A white powder seized in a buy-bust operation in Passy City is tested using the Scott test. A blue color is produced. This result is presumptive for a. Methamphetamine hydrochloride, shabu, B. Cocaine hydrochloride, C. Heroin, D. MDMA, ecstasy. Correct answer. B. Cocaine hydrochloride. Why B is correct? The Scott test, cobalt thiocyanate test, produces a blue color reaction in the presence of cocaine. A two-phase Scott test using cobalt thiocyanate solution. Step 1 produces blue color, presumptive. Adding hydrochloric acid causes it to disappear. Adding chloroform causes it to reappear in the organic layer, confirmatory. The blue color is specifically associated with cocaine. Why the others are wrong? A. Methamphetamine hydrochloride, shabu. Shabu produces an orange-brown color with the Marquis test and a blue-purple color with Simon's test, not the Scott test. The Scott test is not used to identify shabu. C. Heroin. Heroin is identified using the Marquis test, purple-black, and the Mech test, blue-green to black. The Scott test does not react significantly with heroin. MDMA, ecstasy. MDMA produces a purple-black color with the Marquis test, similar to opiates, or a violet color with the Mech test. It does not produce a blue Scott test result. Edge knowledge. Scott test plus blue equals cocaine. Memorize. Scott equals blue equals cocaine. This is a frequently tested pairing in Philippine criminology board exams. Question number 26. Forensic pathology. The stiffening of the muscles of a cadaver after death due to chemical changes in muscle tissue is called A. Livor mortis, B. Algor mortis, C. Rigor mortis, D. Putrefaction. Correct answer. C. Rigor mortis. Why C is correct? Rigor mortis is the temporary stiffening of muscles after death due to the accumulation of lactic acid and depletion of ATP, adenosine triphosphate, in muscle tissue. It typically begins 2 to 6 hours after death, reaches maximum rigidity at 12 hours, and begins to pass at 24 to 48 hours. It is used to estimate the time of death, PMI, post-mortem interval. Why the others are wrong. A livor mortis, lividity. Livor mortis is the purple-red discoloration of skin caused by the gravitational pooling of blood in dependent body parts after the heart stops. It is a sign of death related to blood settling, not muscle stiffening. B. Algor mortis. Algor mortis refers to the cooling of the body after death as it equilibrates with the ambient temperature. It is used to estimate the time of death but involves temperature change, not muscle stiffening. D. Putrefaction. Putrefaction is the decomposition of body tissues by bacteria and enzymes, which occurs in the later stages of postmortem changes. It involves tissue breakdown, not muscle stiffening. Edge knowledge. Rigor equals stiffening, stiff. Think. Rigidity. LIVOR equals discoloration, lividity. Think. Liver colored. Algor equals cooling. Think. Algorithm, temperature. Match the Latin roots. Question number 27. Question documents. A document examiner at the NBI Document Examination Division compares a question typewritten text with a sample typewritten by a suspect's typewriter. The examiner finds a broken letter, E, consistently in both documents. This type of evidence is classified as a class characteristic, B, individual characteristic, C, accidental characteristic, D, general characteristic. Correct answer. B, individual characteristic. Why B is correct? Individual characteristics are unique features that distinguish a single typewriter, or other document-producing machine, from all others of the same make and model. A broken, misaligned, or damaged type character like a broken E is acquired through use and is specific to one machine. Finding the same defect in both the questioned and sample documents links them to the same typewriter. Why the others are wrong. A class characteristic. Class characteristics are features shared by all typewriters of the same make, model, or type, e.g., font style, character spacing. They cannot distinguish one specific machine from others of the same group. C. Accidental characteristic. While a broken letter could initially be described as accidental, once consistently present, it becomes an individual characteristic. Accidental is not the primary classification term used in Philippine document examination standards for this type of evidence. D. General characteristic. General characteristics are broad features common to many documents or machines, such as typeface family. They cannot link a document to a specific machine. Edge knowledge. Broken, damaged type plus consistent in both documents equals individual characteristic, unique to one machine. Class characteristics are shared by all of the same model. Question number 28. Criminalistics, general. Under Philippine law, which agency is mandated to operate the National Crime Laboratory and provide forensic laboratory services to law enforcement agencies? A. National Bureau of Investigation, NBI, B. Philippine National Police Crime Laboratory, PNPCL, C. Department of Justice, DOJ, D. Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency, PDEA. Correct answer. B. Philippine National Police Crime Laboratory, PNPCL. Why B is correct? The PNP Crime Laboratory, PNPCL, is the primary forensic science service provider for law enforcement in the Philippines, mandated under Republic Act No. 6975, DILG Act of 1990, and the PNP's operational directives. It provides forensic examination services including fingerprint examination, questioned documents, ballistics, chemistry, and medico-legal services nationwide. Why the others are wrong. A National Bureau of Investigation, NBI. The NBI has its own forensic laboratory division but is under the DOJ and primarily conducts forensic examinations for its own investigations. It is not designated as the National Crime Laboratory in the Philippine context. C. Department of Justice, DOJ. The DOJ is the executive department responsible for the administration of justice. While it supervises the NBI, it does not operate a crime laboratory directly. D. Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency, PDEA. PDEA is the lead agency in drug enforcement and has drug testing capabilities, but it is not the national crime laboratory providing comprehensive forensic services to all law enforcement agencies. Edge knowledge. National Crime Laboratory equals PNP Crime Laboratory, PNPCL. The PNPCL serves all law enforcement agencies. NBI has its own lab but is not the National Crime Laboratory mandated to serve all agencies. Question number 29. Forensic entomology. A decomposed body was found in the fields of Nueva Ecija. The forensic entomologist collects blowfly maggots from the body. The primary use of blowfly larvae in forensic investigation is to A. Determine the cause of death. B. Estimate the postmortem interval, time of death. C. Identify the geographic origin of the body. D. Determine if the victim was poisoned. Correct answer. B. Estimate the postmortem interval, time of death. Why B is correct? Forensic entomology uses the predictable and sequential colonization of insects on decomposing remains to estimate the postmortem interval, PMI, or minimum time since death. Blowflies, family Calliphoridae, are usually the first insects to colonize a body. By identifying the developmental stage of the larva, egg, instar stages, pupa, adult, and knowing the local temperature data, forensic entomologists can calculate the minimum time since death. Why the others are wrong? A. Determine the cause of death. Cause of death is determined by the medico-legal officer through autopsy and examination of injuries or disease processes. Insect evidence does not reveal the cause of death. C. Identify the geographic origin of the body. While insect species distribution can provide some geographic information, the primary forensic use of entomology is time of death estimation, not geographic origin identification. D. Determine if the victim was poisoned. While some studies show toxicological screening of insect larvae can detect certain drugs and poisons, forensic entomotoxicology, this is a secondary and specialized application. The primary use remains PMI estimation. Edge knowledge. Forensic entomology equals time of death estimation, PMI. Bugs equals time indicator. This is the #1 tested concept for entomology in Philippine board exams. Question number 30. Fingerprint science. The Henry classification system used in the Philippines classifies fingerprints based on the pattern types found on all 10 fingers. The secondary classification in this system specifically deals with the A. Whorls found on all 10 fingers. B. Loops and arches found on the index fingers. C. Ridge count of all loop patterns. D. Number of deltas in whorl patterns. Correct answer. B. Loops and arches found on the index fingers. Why B is correct? In the Henry classification system, the secondary classification specifically examines the pattern types, loops and arches, of the two index fingers, right and left. The secondary is represented by capital letters: R. Radial loop, U. Ulnar loop, A. Arch, T. Tented arch, and W. Whorl, though whorls are used in the primary. This classification narrows the search from the primary to a smaller group. Why the others are wrong? A. Whorls found on all 10 fingers. Whorls on all 10 fingers are used in the primary classification, where they are assigned numerical values to compute the primary fraction, not the secondary. C. Ridge count of all loop patterns. Ridge counting is used in the sub-secondary and final classifications to further subdivide the filing system. It is not the secondary classification. D. Number of deltas in whorl patterns. The number of deltas within whorl patterns is used in the major division to classify whorls as inner, I, meeting, M, or outer, O. This is not the secondary classification. Edge knowledge. Secondary classification equals index fingers only, loops and arches. Remember, secondary equals the two index fingers equals second most important fingers. Primary equals whorls on all 10.
If this video gave you an edge, sharpen that like button and subscribe to stay ahead.